In the heart of the Spanish Empire, a fire was kindled, not of conquest, but of liberation. It began with a boy, Simón Bolívar, born into the gilded cage of colonial aristocracy in Caracas. Orphaned young, he was sent to Europe, a world teeming with radical new ideas of liberty and revolution. It was there, on the Aventine Hill in Rome, overlooking the ruins of an ancient republic, that a vow was made. A promise whispered to his mentor, a promise that would echo across a continent. He swore he would not rest until he had broken the chains binding his homeland. This was not the idle boast of a wealthy youth. It was the forging of a destiny. Returning to Venezuela, Bolívar found a land simmering with rebellion. He threw himself into the fray, a whirlwind of charisma and military fervor. But the first attempts were disastrous failures. The might of the Spanish crown was absolute, crushing the fledgling republics and forcing Bolívar into exile. Lesser men would have surrendered to despair, but Bolívar's resolve was forged in adversity. From the shores of Jamaica, he penned his famous letter, a visionary blueprint for a free and unified South America. It was a dream of a single great nation stretching from the Caribbean to the Andes, a bastion of liberty called Gran Colombia. To realize this dream, he would have to achieve the impossible. He gathered a ragtag army of patriots, llanero horsemen, and foreign legionnaires. His target, the heart of the Spanish viceroyalty in New Granada. Between him and his goal stood the colossal, unforgiving barrier of the Andes Mountains. What followed was one of history's most audacious military feats. Leading thousands of soldiers, poorly clothed and barely fed, Bolívar marched them through the frozen, oxygen-starved Paramos. They traversed treacherous passes where the cold killed as surely as a musket ball. Men and horses perished, but the army's spirit, fueled by Bolívar's unwavering will, endured. They descended from the mountains like ghosts, surprising the Spanish royalists who believed the Andes to be an impenetrable fortress. At the Battle of Boyacá, his exhausted but determined army won a decisive, shocking victory. Bogotá fell, and New Granada was free. The tide had turned. Victory followed victory. Carabobo secured Venezuela's independence. Pichincha liberated Ecuador. With his trusted general, Antonio José de Sucre, he marched south, freeing Peru at the battles of Junín and Ayacucho, the final crushing blows to Spanish rule on the continent. He stood at the apex of his power. He was El Libertador, the Liberator, president of a vast Gran Colombia, a hero celebrated from the slums to the salons. He had fulfilled his oath. But the dream of unity was a fragile one. The very continent he had freed began to fracture. Regional ambitions, political infighting, and civil wars tore at the seams of his great nation. The men who had fought alongside him now plotted against him. The challenges of governing proved more treacherous than crossing the Andes. The Liberator became seen by some as a dictator, his vision of a strong central government clashing with the desire for federalism and local autonomy. Worn down by endless conflict, his health failing and heartbroken by the assassination of his heir apparent, Sucre, Bolívar finally conceded defeat. "I have plowed the sea," he lamented, a bitter admission that his efforts to unite South America had been in vain. He resigned from the presidency and set off for a self-imposed exile, a man without a country, his great republic dissolving behind him. He never made it to Europe. On the Caribbean coast of Colombia, in a borrowed estate, Simón Bolívar, the man who freed half a continent, died of tuberculosis. He was just 47 years old. His end was quiet, almost lonely, a stark contrast to the thunderous life he had led. Yet his legacy is immortal. Though his dream of Gran Colombia died, the nations he liberated endure. He remains a symbol of revolution, a titan of history whose shadow stretches across the Americas, a timeless reminder of the monumental cost and the elusive glory of freedom. Subscribe.